It must be here. I'll unmask her. Damn, these drawers have loads of papers. I'll search them for eternity. Suddenly I heard the principal's voice. Oh no! And then I saw the paper. There it is. Yes! So I was right. Hi, I'm Alice. The graduation party is very soon, but I'm still single. I need no one except Howard, however. I love him since the first grade. We get on well and even walk home together, but nothing else. During a history class, a note flew to my desk. I opened it and gasped. Howard wrote he would like to go to the prom with me. This can't be. Is it an offer to be a couple? I turned to him confusedly. Maybe it was a joke. But he winked and blew me a kiss. I almost flew of joy, but then the principal entered. He introduced our new classmate, Deborah. She's quite the looker. I hope Howard won't fall for her. The new girl, however, didn't talk to anyone and behaved arrogantly. After the classes, Howard and I went home as usual, discussing which university we'd enter. Suddenly a posh SUV stopped in front of us. Whom is it after? Then someone pushed me from behind. It was Deborah. She got into the car and was off. The next day, right after Deborah entered the class, Howard immediately asked her about the car. Why do you care? The entire class stared at her, and she replied proudly she had a personal driver. Everyone was blown away and then said wow like a herd of sheep. Howard didn't take his eyes off her, and it drove me so mad. And when I invited him to the canteen to discuss the prom outfits, he invited the new girl with us. What? But she said she didn't eat school food but brought her own from restaurants. Then I couldn't help it but asked, "Are you kinda rich or what?" Everyone froze, waiting for her answer. "Yes," she replied. "Our family has a lot of business, and we are this school's main sponsors. The principal said he'll watch over me and drop out anyone who hurts me." You could hear a pin drop. Come on, that's rubbish! Who would drop anyone before the prom? But it seemed they didn't hear me. Folks surrounded Deborah asking about her interests. Even Howard joined her at her desk. Traitor! I was ready to burst of fury. Suddenly Jack ran into the class and said Thomas from another class was dropped out. Everyone gasped and looked at Deborah. She smirked and hissed he shouldn't have taken her bag and kicked it yesterday. Since then, the entire class was buttering her up. Howard forgot me. We didn't go home together anymore. It was so bad, and I felt like stress eating. I left the bakery and saw the familiar car. It was the same SUV. Might be it's Deborah inside, maybe even with Howard. Shame the windows are tinted and I can't see anything. Suddenly a couple nearby called, "Taxi!" and got into the SUV. Wait, what? What taxi? Might it be? It dawned onto me. It was not Deborah's personal driver, but a taxi driver. I called Howard immediately. Listen, she lies. She's not rich, and the SUV is just an elite taxi. I've just seen it. What do you mean? I'm jealous. Wait! Howard hung up. He didn't believe me. I needed more evidence then. I crawled into the principal's office while he was having lunch in the canteen. Somewhere here must be Thomas's papers. I'm sure he was not dropped out. Damn, these drawers have loads of papers. I'll search them for eternity. Suddenly I heard the principal's voice. Oh no, he's close. And then I saw the paper. Yes, so I was right. I barely managed to leave when Mr. Taylor showed in the corridor. I greeted him and went by, and under my shirt was Thomas's parents' application for his documents. They were just moving elsewhere, and Thomas was to study there. That's it. I collected the evidence. The SUV was a taxi. Thomas was not dropped out. I had the paper from his parents. But it wasn't enough. It would be great to find out where Deborah lives. Must have been some ticky-tacky, and I had the chance. Deborah suddenly invited the whole class to a party at her place to celebrate her change of school. Cool minivan picked us up. After the classes, she must have rented it as a taxi too. Left the city and stopped in front of a posh mansion. No, this can't be. It was a palace all right, and folks admired it and Deborah. Howard followed her every step and then deliberately loudly asked her to join him at the prom. Howard, how could you? My heart sank. What a fail! I called for a taxi and left immediately. I'd spent the entire evening crying in my room. How badly did it hurt? I took my smartphone to watch some funny video and noticed a pop-up ad. I felt feverish. It was the same house I'd been to earlier, with the same address. I checked the link and gasped. A company was leasing the mansion for hours, days and weeks. It's not her home. She's a liar. I screened the page and saved the website, just in case. Now I have enough evidence. I just need to wait until tomorrow. After the classes, I stood in the doorway and shouted, "Listen, folks! Deborah is a liar and no rich girl." They started whistling and telling me to shut up. I have evidence. Then they fell silent and I started. The SUV, which allegedly is Deborah's personal driver's, belongs to Uber. Thomas, who she said was dropped out because of her, in reality moved to another city with his parents. It is written in this application. Here it is if you don't believe me. And finally, the house we partied at yesterday is leased by American Tower Corporation. You, Deborah, are a big liar who wanted to buy our love with lies. She was shocked and then left silently. Folks applauded me and called me cool, and Howard asked if we could walk together. We were having fun chatting on a bench when suddenly we heard familiar voices. There were Deborah and the principal. He asked if she was okay, to which she replied rudely, "Alice must be dropped out and soon." Mr. Taylor humbly lowered his head and said, "It will be done." What? Liked the video? We wait for your likes and comments. Have a great one.
Austin, there are actually rules here. Where do you put your feet? But suddenly I got goosebumps all over my body. Our twister lit up brightly with green light. Each circle on it was flashing its own rhythm. What the hell is going on here? Am I crazy? I always got along well with my classmates. But when I saw our new kid Austin, I just lost my mind. He was somehow extraordinary. I literally couldn't take my eyes off him. And of course, when a few weeks later he asked me to date, I agreed without hesitation. I was dreaming about this since the first day he transferred to our class. It soon turned out that Austin loved different games. Blood Rage, King of Tokyo, and Uno were his world. To be honest, before Austin, I wasn't particularly keen on this. But gradually I got involved too. I couldn't even think better that it could be so entertaining. One day, Austin came to me with a mysterious smile. "I found the right store. Let's go quickly." 15 minutes later, we were already standing at the entrance. I couldn't even catch my breath. A huge store specializing in different games. Well, I didn't know there was such a thing in our town. But when I looked closer, I realized that something was wrong with the store. There were fresh cracks in some places, and it was completely dark inside. Strange. I looked at Austin questioningly, but he only gestured for me to come in. The store really had a rather gloomy atmosphere. There were mountains of closed boxes everywhere, and some fragments were lying on the floor. We quickly left without understanding anything. The owner literally pushed us out the door. He was also looking at Austin so strangely, literally looking daggers at him. It was a little strange. For the next few days, I couldn't leave the idea of going back there and asking the owner about everything better. I got ready and went there alone. Little has changed inside, except that there were noticeably fewer boxes. During our short conversation, the owner was constantly distracted by phone calls and some business. but still told me that recently a terrible car accident happened to the store. Someone drove a black Jeep into it. So that's why there was such ruin everywhere. I expressed my condolences, but the owner replied that some games were still intact, but they were moved to another store. Hooray! Austin will be thrilled. Quickly finding out the address, I immediately rushed to the second store. I was already looking forward to choosing the coolest board game for Austin, but when I went inside, there was no limit to my disappointment. Almost all the games were bought. After wandering between the half-empty shelves on which games were displayed only for preschoolers, I asked the seller if there was anything left. He looked thoughtfully at the screen and said, "There is one Twister in the warehouse." Without thinking twice, I blurted out, "I'll take it." Of course, not the best option, but at least something for Austin and me. Soon I was walking down the street with the box in my hands and sweetly imagined how surprised Austin would be. But after a couple of minutes, I realized that something was confusing me. I slowly turned my head and noticed that two men in black were staring at me from the other side of the street. Frightened, I quickened my pace. But when I turned around again, the men were gone. Strange, maybe I imagined it? In the evening, Austin came to me as usual. "I have something for you." I immediately blurted out and reached for the box. As soon as Austin saw the package, his face just broke into a smile. Hooray, he liked it. We immediately started to play. At first, everything went well. But then, hey, I'm sick of it. Austin, there are actually rules here. Where do you put your feet? Are you cheating at Twister? I didn't have time to finish, as some kind of devilry started happening to me too. My hand was stubbornly reaching for the blue circle, even though I just got a red one. Wait, what is this all about? Am I crazy? I looked at Austin in confusion, who apparently also did not understand anything. But then something happened that made a lump rise in my throat. The Twister lit up brightly with a green light. Each circle on it was flashing in its own rhythm. Austin, on the other hand, watched expectantly as the Twister man transformed into some kind of incomprehensible thing with a bunch of buttons and light bulbs. I was speechless from the shock. But why was Austin watching it all so calmly? I was afraid to move and just waited for an explanation. "Don't be afraid, please. I need to confess something to you." Austin looked at me guiltily. An unpleasant chill ran down my spine. "Come on." But before Austin could open his mouth, suddenly there was a strange noise and hum in the street. The window was flooded with multicolored light. I looked out of it and saw a real flying spaceship right near my house. My God, it's like from the movies. That was all I blurted out. "Run!" Austin suddenly shouted. It already seemed to me that I was in some strange fantasy movie, but what happened next just didn't fit in my head. Austin pulled me to the back exit of the house. I was so amazed that I didn't even have the strength to resist. On the way, he told me that it turned out he was an alien. At first I thought he was just kidding me. But Austin was talking in an absolutely serious tone about how he traveled through space on his ship and accidentally falling into a meteor shower, crashed and fell into the same store with games. It was just a month ago when Austin was transferred to our class. I listened and bated breath and still couldn't believe it. We were already running out into the yard from the back door and Austin kept talking. He said that after the crash, he was already dying. The ship could not be saved and all he could do was disguise the ship as a store. And he turned all the important equipment into the boxes of games. Among everything, there was an emergency communication device for calling for help. But losing consciousness, Austin no longer remembered what exactly he disguised it under. The partner who helped him died, and Austin barely remembered who he was, so the search dragged on. To say that I was in shock is to say nothing. Does your boyfriend often tell you that he is an alien? I shivered in the cold evening air and looked from Austin to the flying saucer. But suddenly Austin stopped me and told me to wait around the corner of the house. Damn it. He blurted out. I followed his gaze and saw near the flying spaceship those men who were watching me when I just bought the twister. It's the feds. They won't let me fly back, said Austin. We need to act faster. He looked into my eyes and said, I'm sorry I didn't tell you right away. I was scared. I was afraid that you, like other Earthlings, would not accept me. But as soon as I saw you, I immediately felt something. Unfortunately, only 2 people can communicate with representatives of my extraterrestrial race. And my partner died, but our feelings helped me to call for help. If it wasn't for you and this twister game, I would never have returned to my homeland. Thank you. Samantha, come with me. Austin tightened his grip on my hand. We'll travel across galaxies, explore worlds, and I'll even give you a star. I couldn't understand anything. Austin spoke very sincerely, but I looked around my house. Remembered friends, parents, school. A lump rose in my throat because I really wanted to be with him. Samantha, hurry up, he urged me on. The feds already heard the strange noise around the corner of the house and began to approach us. Cold sweat broke out on my forehead. I'm sorry. I can't leave everything and fly away, was all I managed to let out. My family, friends, my whole life are here. I love you very much, but I love them no less. Austin just looked at me knowingly and bending down, kissed me, whispering in my ear, Goodbye, I hope to see you again. After that, he definitely jumped onto the fire escape. The feds immediately noticed him and reached for their guns. No, I squeezed my eyes shut, but Austin just as nimbly jumped to the roof of the spaceship, quickly waved to me, and after a couple of seconds, the flying saucer already disappeared somewhere in the air. While the feds stared blankly at the night sky, I quickly made my way back to the house. The trembling from fright and cold did not let me go in any way. Did he really just fly away? I sat down on the floor and couldn't hold back my tears. It was all just a magical dream. Days followed one another. One day, I came back from school and saw a twister box on the bed. Did you like the video? Subscribe and like it. Support the channel. Thank you.